Time Warner Incorporated is an American multinational media corporation headquartered in the Time Warner Center in New York City. It is the world's third-largest television networks and film, TV and entertainment company in terms of revenue, as well as the world's largest media conglomerate. The current Time Warner Company consists of the assets of the original company formed after Warner Communications and Time, Incorporated merged, along with the assets of Turner Broadcasting that were acquired via the company's 1996 merger. Time Warner has major operations in film and television. Among its subsidiaries are New Line Cinema, HBO, Turner Broadcasting System, the CW Television Network, Warner Brothers, Kids WB, Cartoon Network, Boomerang, Adult Swim, CNN, DC Comics, Warner Brothers Animation, Cartoon Network Studios, Hanna-Barbera, and Castle Rock Entertainment. Time Warner previously owned AOL, Time Warner Cable, and Warner Music Group, but has spun them off into independent companies. On March 6, 2013, Time Warner announced that Time Incorporated would be spun off as well. The spin-off took place on June 9, 2014, having been originally scheduled for late 2013. In January 2014, Time Warner, related companies and Oxford Properties Group announced that Time Warner intends to relocate the Compania unregistered trademark's corporate headquarters and its New York City-based employees to Hudson Yards on the west side of Manhattan, and has accordingly made an initial financial commitment. Time Warner sold its stake in the Columbus Circle building for $1.3 billion to related and to wealth funds. Divisions: Time Warner consists of three divisions. Home Box Office Incorporated, Turner Broadcasting System, Incorporated, and Warner Brothers. HBO: in 2012 HBO was the #1 premium pay television service in primetime television and total day ratings. In 2013 the network received 5 Golden Globes and 23 Primetime Emmy Awards. BOA unregistered trademark's programming includes the airing of feature films, HBO documentary films, HBO original films, and HBO original programming, including original series like Game of Thrones and The Sopranos, HBO Sports. The network has developed content distribution platforms, like HBO Geo and Max Geo to help support and deliver programming to users via online and mobile devices. HBO and Cinemax are currently available in over 70 countries around the world and HBO programming is licensed to other television networks in over 150 countries. HBO's original programming includes Game of Thrones, True Blood, Boardwalk Empire, Entourage, Girls and VEP, as well as motion pictures, miniseries, boxing matches and sports programs, comedy specials, family programming and documentaries. In 2011, Cinemax launched its first original primetime series, Strike Back, and has subsequently launched the original primetime series, Hunted and Banshee. Turner Broadcasting System, Incorporated. Turner Broadcasting System, Incorporated operates international news, entertainment, animation, young adult and kids media networks as well as related businesses. Turner brands include CNN, HLN, TNT, TBS, The Legal Talk Network, Cartoon Network, Turner Classic Movies, TOU-TV, Turner Sports, The Legal Forum Radio Show, Atlanta Medical Journal and more. Turner unregistered trademark's brands and sub-brands reach broad domestic and international audiences. In addition to television network programming, Turner manages digital sports entities, including BleacherReport.com, NBA.com, PGA.com and NCAA.com. Turner unregistered trademark's TBS channel reaches large audiences in the 18 to 34-year-old bracket and its news network, CNN, provides a 24-hour news network that delivers news and analysis to domestic and international audiences across multiple platforms. Turner Sports produces sports programming and content for the Turner networks and related digital properties. Turner Sports' unregistered trademark television lineup includes NBA and MLB games, the NCAA tournament games, NASCAR races and professional golf tournaments. Turner operates PGA.com and related digital properties of the PGA under agreements with the PGA. Turner and the NBA jointly manage a portfolio of the NBA Euro unregistered trademark S digital businesses, including NBA TV, NBA.com, NBA League Pass, NBA Mobile and the NBA Game Time app, and also MLB jointly manage a portfolio of the MLB's digital businesses including MLB Network, MLB.com, MLB Extra Innings and the MLB Network app. Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers businesses range from feature film and TV to home entertainment production and worldwide distribution to home video, digital distribution, animation, comic books, licensing and international cinemas and broadcasting. In 2012 the Warner Brothers. Pictures Group grossed $4.3 billion at the worldwide box office. Home video is the industry leader with a 21% market share in total DVD and Blu-ray sales. Warner Brothers. Home entertainment works across platforms and outlets in the digital realm with video on demand, branded channels, original content, anti-piracy technology and broadband and wireless destinations. Each year Warner Brothers Pictures produces between 18 and 22 films. Warner Brothers has produced more than 50 television series in the 2012 to 2013 television season. Warner Brothers has also incorporated DC Comics content into Warner Brothers Entertainment via the creation of the DC Entertainment division, which was founded in 2009. DC Entertainment, which is wholly owned by the company, is responsible for bringing the stories and characters from the DC Comics, Vertigo and MAD magazine publishing portfolios into other Warner Brothers content and distribution businesses, including feature films, television programming, video games, direct-to-consumer platforms and consumer products. The DC Comics imprint, home to such iconic characters as Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash and Green Lantern, has launched digital versions of its top comic book and graphic novel titles, making them available for download on digital platforms. History, 1920s, Time magazine made its debut in 1923 as the first weekly news magazine in the United States. 4 years later, in 1927, Warner Brothers released the World Euro unregistered trademark S first feature-length talking picture, The Jazz Singer. 1960s, in 1963, recommendations from Time Incorporated based on how it delivered magazines led to the introduction of zip codes by the United States Post Office. 1970s, in 1972, Kinney National Company spun off its non-entertainment assets due to a financial scandal over its parking operations and renamed itself Warner Communications Incorporated. It was the holding company for Warner Brothers Pictures and Warner Music Group during the 1970s and 1980s. It also owned DC Comics and MAD, as well as a majority stake in Garden State National Bank. Warner's initial divestiture efforts led by Garden State CEO Charles A. Agamian were blocked by Garden State board member William A. Conway in 1978. A revised transaction was later completed in 1980. In 1975, Home Box Office became the first TV network to broadcast nationally via satellite, debuting with the Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier Euro thriller in Manila Euro boxing match. In 1975, Warner expanded under the guidance of CEO Steve Ross and formed a joint venture with American Express, named Warner Amex Satellite Entertainment, which held cable channels including MTV, Nickelodeon and the Movie Channel. Warner bought out American Express's half in 1984, and sold the venture a year later to Viacom, which renamed it MTV Networks. In 1976, the Turner Euro-owned WTCG originated the superstation concept, transmitting via satellite to cable systems nationwide and pioneering the basic cable business model. WTCG was renamed WTBS in 1979. In 1976, Nolan Bushnell sold Atari, Incorporated to Warner Communications for an estimated $2 a euro 12 million. Warner made considerable profits with Atari, which it owned from 1976 to 1984. While part of Warner, Atari achieved its greatest success, selling millions of Atari 2600s and computers. At its peak, Atari accounted for a third of Warner's annual income and was the fastest-growing company in the history of the United States at the time. 1980s. In 1980, Warner purchased the Franklin Mint for about $225 million. The combination was short-lived. Warner sold the Franklin Mint in 1985 to American Protection Industries Incorporated for $167.5 million. However, Warner retained Franklin Mint a Euro unregistered trademark S Eastern Mountain Sports as well as the Franklin Mint Center, which it leased back to API. In 1980, Turner launched CNN, the first 24-hour all-news network, redefining the way the world received breaking news. In January 1983, Warner expanded their interests to baseball. Under the direction of Cesar P. Camel, executive vice president, bought 48% of the Pittsburgh Pirates for $10 million. The company then put up its share for sale in November 1984 following losses of $6 million due to its failed attempt to launch a cable sports package. The team's majority owner, John W. Galbraith, soon followed suit after learning of Warner's actions. Both Galbraith and Warner sold the Pirates to local investors in March 1986. In 1984, due to major losses spurred by subsidiary Atari Incorporated's losses, Warner sold Atari Incorporated's consumer division assets to Jack Tramiel. It kept the rest of the company and named it Atari Games, eventually reducing it to just the coin division. They sold Atari Games to Namco in 1985, and repurchased it in 1992, renaming it Time Warner Interactive, until it was sold to Midway Games in 1996. In a long-expected deal, Warner Communications announced on May 11, 1988, they were acquiring Lorimar Telepictures. The acquisition was finalized on January 12, 1989. The merger of Time Incorporated and Warner Communications was announced on March 4, 1989. During the summer of that same year, Paramount Communications launched a $12.2 billion hostile bid to acquire Time Incorporated in an attempt to end a stock swap merger deal between Time and Warner Communications. This caused Time to raise its bid for Warner to $14.9 billion in cash and stock. Paramount responded by filing a lawsuit in a Delaware court to block the Time-Warner merger. The court ruled twice in favor of Time, forcing Paramount to drop both the Time acquisition and the lawsuit, and allowing the formation of the two companies' merger which was completed on January 10, 1990. However, instead of the companies becoming defunct, the impact of the merger and its resultant financial shockwave gave off a new corporate structure, resulting in the new company being called Time Warner. 1990s, Time Warner subsequently acquired Ted Turner's Turner Broadcasting System in October 1996. Not only did this result in the company re-entering the basic cable television industry, but Warner Brothers also regained the rights to their pre-1950 film library, which by then had been owned by Turner. Time Warner purchased Six Flags theme parks chain in 1993. The company later sold all Six Flags parks and properties to Oklahoma-based Premier Parks on April 1, 1998. Dick Parsons, already a director on the board since 1991, was hired as Time Warner president in 1995, although the division operational heads continued to report directly to chairman and CEO Gerald Levin. In 1991, HBO and Cinemax became the first premium pay services to offer multiplexing to cable customers, with companion channels supplementing the main networks. In 1993 HBO became the world's first digitally transmitted television service. In 1995 CNN introduced CNN.com, which later became a leading destination for global digital news, both online and mobile. In 1996, Warner Brothers spearheaded the introduction of the DVD, which rapidly replaced VHS tapes as the standard for home video. In 1999, HBO became the first national cable TV network to broadcast a higher Euro-definition version of its channel. 2000s, AOL Time Warner merger. In 2000, AOL purchased Time Warner for $164 billion. The deal, announced on January 10, 2000 and officially filed on February 11, 2000, employed a merger structure in which each original company merged into a newly created entity. The Federal Trade Commission cleared the deal on December 14, 2000, and gave final approval on January 11, 2001. The company completed the merger later that day. The deal was approved on the same day by the Federal Communications Commission, and had already been cleared by the European Commission on October 11, 2000. Due to the larger market capitalization of AOL, they would own 55% of the new company while Time Warner shareholders owned only 45%, so in actual practice AOL had acquired Time Warner, even though Time Warner had far less assets and revenues. The 2001 AOL merger was the biggest mistake in corporate history, believes Time Warner chief Jeff Bukes. AOL Time Warner, Incorporated, as the company was then called, was supposed to be a merger of equals with top executives from both sides. Gerald Levin, who had served as CEO of Time Warner, was CEO of the new company. Steve Case served as executive chairman of the board of directors, Robert W. Pittman and Dick Parsons served as co-chief operating officers, and J. Michael Kelly became the chief financial officer. According to AOL president and COO Bob Pittman, the slow-moving Time Warner would now take off at internet speed, accelerated by AOL. All you need to do is put a catalyst to Time Warner, and in a short period, you can alter the growth rate. The growth rate will be like an internet company. When the AOL Time Warner deal was announced, the vision for its future seemed clear and straightforward. By tapping into AOL, Time Warner would reach deep into the homes of tens of millions of new customers. AOL would use Time Warner's high-speed cable lines to deliver to its subscribers Time Warner's branded magazines, books, music, and movies. This would have created 130 million subscription relationships. Unfortunately, the growth and profitability of the AOL division stalled due to advertising and subscriber slowdowns in part caused by the burst of the dot-com bubble and the economic recession after September 2001. The value of the America Online division dropped significantly, not unlike the market valuation of similar independent Internet companies that drastically fell, and forced a goodwill write-off, causing AOL Time Warner to report a loss of $99 billion in 2002 euro at the time, the largest loss ever reported by a company. The total value of AOL stock subsequently went from $226 billion to about $20 billion. An outburst by Vice Chairman Ted Turner at a board meeting prompted Steve Case to contact each of the directors and push for CEO Gerald Levin's ouster. Although Case's coup attempt was rebuffed by Parsons and several other directors, Levin became frustrated with being unable to regain the rhythm at the combined company and announced his resignation in the fall of 2001, effective in May 2002. Although co-COO Bob Pittman was the strongest supporter of Levin and largely seen as the heir apparent, Dick Parsons was instead chosen as CEO. Time Warner CFO J. Michael Kelly was demoted to COO of the AOL division, and replaced as CFO by Wayne Pace. AOL chairman and CEO Barry Schuller was removed from his position and placed in charge of a new content creation division, being replaced on an interim basis by Pittman, who was already serving as the sole COO after Parsons' promotion. Many expected synergies between AOL and other Time Warner divisions never materialized, as most Time Warner divisions were considered independent fiefs that rarely cooperated prior to the merger. A new incentive program that granted options based on the performance of AOL Time Warner, replacing the cash bonuses for the results of their own division, caused resentment among Time Warner division heads who blamed the AOL division for failing to meet expectations and dragging down the combined company. AOL Time Warner COO Pittman, who expected to have the divisions working closely towards convergence, instead found heavy resistance from many division executives, who also criticized Pittman for adhering to optimistic growth targets for AOL Time Warner that were never met. Some of the attacks on Pittman were reported to come from the print media in the Time, Incorporated division under Don Logan. Furthermore, CEO Parsons' democratic style prevented Pittman from exercising authority over the old guard division heads who resisted Pittman's synergy initiatives. Pittman announced his resignation as AOL Time Warner COO after July 4, 2002, being reportedly burned out by the AOL special assignment and almost hospitalized, unhappy about the criticism from Time Warner executives, and seeing nowhere to move up in firm as Parsons was firmly entrenched as CEO. Pittman's departure was seen as a great victory to Time Warner executives who wanted to undo the merger. In a sign of AOL's diminishing importance to the media conglomerate, Pittman's responsibilities were divided between two Time Warner veterans. Jeffrey Bukes, who was CEO of Home Box Office, and Don Logan, who had been CEO of Time. Logan became chairman of the newly created Media and Communications Group, overseeing America Online, Time Warner Cable, the AOL Time Warner Book Group and the Interactive Video Unit, relegating AOL to being just another division in the conglomerate. Bukes became chairman of the Entertainment and Networks Group, comprising HBO, New Line Cinema, the WB, Turner Networks, Warner Brothers and Warner Music. Both Logan and Bukes, who had initially opposed the merger, were chosen because they were considered the most successful operational executives in the conglomerate and they would report to AOL Time Warner CEO Richard Parsons. Logan, generally admired at Time Warner and reviled by AOL for being a corporate time server who stressed incremental steady growth and not much of a risk-taker, moved to purge AOL of several Pittman panzers. AOL Time Warner chairman Steve Case took on added prominence as the co-head of a new strategy committee of the board, making speeches to divisions on synergism and the promise of the Internet. However, under pressure from institutional investor Vice President Gordon Crawford, who lined up dissenters, Case announced in January 2003 that he would not stand for re-election as executive chairman in the upcoming annual meeting, making CEO Richard Parsons the chairman-elect. That year, the company dropped the AOL from its name, and spun off Time Life's ownership under the legal name Direct Holdings Americas, Incorporated. Case resigned from the Time Warner board on October 31, 2005. In 2005, Time Warner was among 53 entities that contributed the maximum of $250,000 to the second inauguration of President George W. Bush. On December 27, 2007, newly installed Time Warner CEO Jeffrey Bukes discussed possible plans to spin off Time Warner Cable and sell off AOL and Time Incorporated. This would leave a smaller company made up of Turner Broadcasting, Warner Brothers and HBO. On February 28, 2008, co-chairman and co-CEOs of New Line Cinema Bob Shaye and Michael Lynn announced their resignations from the 40-year-old movie studio in response to Jeffrey Bukes' demand for cost-cutting measures at the studio, which he intended to dissolve into Warner Brothers. On May 28, 2009, Time Warner announced that it would spin off AOL as a separate independent company, with the change occurring on December 9, 2009. 2010s. In 2010, Turner Sports, Incorporated and the National Collegiate Athletic Association jointly announced the formation of NCAA Digital, a 14-year agreement in which Turner will manage and operate the NCAA Euro unregistered trademark S digital portfolio and strengthen coverage of all 88 NCAA championships. NCAA Digital encompasses NCAA.com and additional NCAA digital platforms, including mobile web and applications, as well as other connected devices. On August 25, 2010, Time Warner's Latin American division bought Chilean nationwide terrestrial television station Televisión from Chile's former president Sebastián Piñera era. Time Warner already operates in the country with CNN Chile. In 2011, Warner Brothers announced its acquisition of Flixster, a movie discovery application company. In January 2012, Home Box Office and Dish Network LLC reached an agreement that will give Dish customers expanded access to BOA Euro unregistered trademark S acclaimed programming. In October 2012, Warner Brothers. Home Entertainment and Paramount Home Media Distribution reached an agreement that will give Warner Brothers rights to Blu-ray and DVD distribution of several titles from Paramount in the US and Canada. In June 2014, 21st Century Fox made a bid for Time Warner at $85 per share in stock and cash, which Time Warner's board of directors turned down in July. Warner's CNN unit would have been sold to ease antitrust issues of the purchase. On August 5, 2014, 21st Century Fox withdrew its offer to purchase Time Warner. Transactions. On December 15, 2006, Warner Bros. Entertainment Incorporated announced an investment in Psy Entertainment Group plc, the parent company of publishing label Eidos Interactive Limited, representing 10.3% of the company's enlarged share capital. Additionally, Warner Bros. Home Entertainment Group and Psy have entered into an agreement for licensing and distribution of games based on select Warner Bros. Entertainment properties. The investment, licensing and distribution agreements are all pending Psy shareholder approval. On October 5, 2007, Turner Broadcasting System, Incorporated completed the acquisition of Klaxon Interactive pay television networks in Latin America. On November 8, 2007, Warner Bros. Home Entertainment Group announced it has entered into an agreement to acquire TT Games, which encompasses game developers Traveller's Tales and TT Games Publishing. On February 4, 2009, Warner Bros. Home Entertainment Group announced their acquisition of Snowblind Studios, a game development studio. On May 21, 2008, Time Warner and Time Warner Cable Incorporated agreed to separation. On February 19, 2009, Time Warner and Time Warner Cable completed the separation of the two companies through a spin-off. On March 17, 2009, Time Warner Incorporated announced that, in connection to the legal and structural separation of Time Warner Cable Incorporated from Time Warner through a tax-free spin-off that became effective on March 12, 2009. In the first quarter of 2010, Home Box Office purchased additional interests in HBO Lag for $217 million, which resulted in Home Box Office owning 80% of the equity interests of HBO Lag in 2010. Home Box Office purchased the remainder of its partner Euro unregistered trademark interests in HBO Europe for $136 million, net of cash acquired. On April 20, 2010, Warner Bros. Home Entertainment Group announced the acquisition of Turbine, Incorporated, a gaming studio in North America. In August 2010, Time Warner agreed to acquire Shed Media, a TV production company, for £100 million. On October 14, 2010, Warner Bros. Television Group announced that it completed the acquisition of a majority stake in Shed Media, an independent production and distribution company. Shed Media will remain an independent production company, but its distribution operation, outright distribution, will be folded into Warner Bros. International Television Production. On August 26, 2010, Time Warner took full control of Televisión, a TV channel owned by Chile's president Sebastián Piñera +/- Central European Media Enterprises Limited is a publicly traded broadcasting company operating leading networks in 6 Central and Eastern European countries. On May 18, 2009, the company completed an equity investment in CME for $246 million. In May 2011, Warner Bros. Home Entertainment Group announced an agreement to acquire Flixster, a movie discovery application company. The acquisition also includes Rotten Tomatoes, a movie review aggregator. In 2012, WBTVG acquired Alloy Entertainment, a producer of content, primarily books, aimed at teen girls and young women. In August 2012, Turner acquired Bleacher Report, a sports news organization. On March 6, 2013, Time Warner announced the divestment of Time Incorporated. On June 6, 2014, Time Incorporated became a publicly traded company. Time Warner will continue to operate under its current name, the CW. On January 24, 2006, CBS Corporation and Time Warner announced that they were to create a new broadcast network, the CW. The network officially debuted on September 18, 2006. The network formally debuted on September 20 with a 2-hour premiere of America's Next Top Model. The network is the result of a merger of the WB and UPN. CBS Corporation and Time Warner each own 50% of the network. Tribune Broadcasting and CBS Corporation contributed its stations as new network affiliates, although Time Warner's sole-owned TV station Atlanta's WTBS remains an independent station, competing against CBS-owned CWO and OWUPA. Financials: on October 23, 2002, AOL Time Warner Incorporated posted a third-quarter profit, but said it would restate 2 years of results, cutting $190 million in revenues, due to accounting problems at its embattled America Online division. On July 23, 2003, the company would have to restate an additional $400 million in advertising revenue as a result of a second inquiry. On November 3, 2004, Time Warner Incorporated would restate earnings from 2000 and 2001 to include losses from AOL Europe and set aside $500 million to cover costs related to federal investigations into accounting at its America Online unit. On February 2, 2011, Time Warner reported a 2010 revenue of $26.9 billion, highest growth rate since 2004 and a 6% rise since 2009. On February 8, 2012, Time Warner reported revenue of $29.0 billion, highest growth rate since 2003. On February 6, 2013, Time Warner reported revenue for 2012 of $28.7 billion and an adjusted operating income of $6.1 billion. Commercial properties: Time Warner owns several large properties in New York City. Certain buildings in the Rockefeller Center complex and adjacent office towers house its main offices, one of which houses a CNN news studio. In late 2003, Time Warner finished construction of a new twin tower complex, designed to serve as additional office space, facing Columbus Circle on the southwestern edge of Central Park. Originally called the AOL Time Warner Center, the 755-foot, 55-floor mixed-use property was renamed Time Warner Center when the company itself was renamed. Board of Directors: as of July 31, 2014, Jeff Bewkes, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Time Warner Incorporated. James Barksdale, Chairman and President, Barksdale Management Corporation. William P. Barr, former Attorney General of the United States. Stephen F. Bollenbach, former co-chairman and chief executive officer, Hilton Hotels Corporation. Robert C. Clark, distinguished service professor, Harvard University. Matthias Dahl, paragraph PFNER, chairman, chief executive officer, Axel Springer AG. Jessica P. Einhorn, dean, Paul H. Nitz School of Advanced International Studies, Johns Hopkins University. Carlos Gutierrez, co-chair, Albright Steinebridge Group. Frederick Hosen, partner and managing director, Warburg Pincus. Ken Novak, former partner, Mintz, Levin, Cohn, Ferris, Glovsky and Porfio, P.C., Paul D. Wachter, founder and chief executive officer, Main Street Advisors. Deborah C. Wright, chairman and CEO, Carver Bancorp, Incorporated. Senior executives, Time Warner Incorporated. Jeff Bewkes, chairman and CEO, and 5 executive vice presidents, most with additional, functional titles: Paul T. Coxio, general counsel; Gary L. Ginsberg, corporate marketing and communications; Howard M. Averill, chief financial officer; Carol A. Melton, global public policy; Olaf Olafsson, division CEOs; Richard Plepler, chairman and CEO of Home Box Office; John Martin, chairman and CEO of Turner Broadcasting System; Kevin Tsujihara, CEO of Warner Brothers Entertainment Incorporated. Competition: Time Warner faces industry competition from traditional media companies such as Vivendi, CBS Corporation, Sony, Viacom, The Walt Disney Company, Comcast, and 21st Century Fox. Time Warner's and many of their competition's business may be severely impacted by the increasing viewership of feature films, television programming and other content online with low ad income, which decreases company revenues. Box office receipts have been rising while the growth rate of DVD sales have recently been declining, which affects Warner Brothers' growth prospects and revenues. Past names: Time Incorporated, Warner Brothers Pictures Incorporated, Seven Arts Productions Incorporated. Kinney National Company, Warner Brothers. Seven Arts, Warner Communications, Time Warner, Time Warner Entertainment, AOL Time Warner Incorporated. Restatement: in March 2002, the company restated its financial statements to reflect the merger of MapQuest and other companies. See also. Footnotes. External links, official website, a complete list of Time Warner media facilities and a detailed report on their campaign contributions and lobbying from the Center for Public Integrity, COCIPA, Time Warner profile, Columbia Journal reviews who owns what for Time Warner, early analysis of the Time Warner AOL merger, Yahoo! Time Warner Incorporated. Company profile, Time Warner's most recent conference call transcripts, portrait of the company at Independent Database Media. View.